Welcome to this morning's edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. We're very happy to have you guys with us here for the show. My man Mike Jones is already in the picture. So we're having a little technical snafu, but it worked out well. So we have him right here on the program. And we want to tell you before we get started here that Bet Online is the place to go for all of your online betting, all of your wagering activity for that matter. Bet Online and make it very, very simple for you. They're absolutely the best in the business. Great reputation, impeccable reputation. And then on top of that, you can bet on just about anything. I mean, it doesn't matter. Maybe you're betting this Medvedev Tien match that's going on right now. Tien, an American, right out of the Bob Dylan school, a complete unknown to me. And this is one of the great things about being a sportscaster on the East Coast is when there's activity like the British Open and or in tennis, especially French Open, Wimbledon, and especially the Australian Open. The shit goes on all night long. And then while you're on the air, you actually have live action. These guys had a 45-shot rally that Tien won. He won the first two sets of the match. But, of course, Medvedev, this dogged competitor, that's the time to bet on him. I mean, if you were going to send it in on that match, down two sets, down a point in the tiebreaker, I guess if you picked the ultimate time to jump on board, that would have been it. And you can bet all this stuff at Bet Online. They make it really, really easy for you. Absolutely tremendous. As they say, log on to the website, sign up, get an account, make all of your wagers there. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right, we got you out of the bullpen really early. I mean, there's no secret that Earl Weaver's going to bring in a left-hander. There is we have Mike Jones with us. And Michael, how are you, my friend? You have to be absolutely wild with anticipation of what's going to come up this weekend.
I am. I can't wait. It's one of the best weekends of the year. And you get a Monday night game to boot, the college football championship, the latest it's ever been played. I think we're in for a really great football weekend.
You know what? I'm so enamored with trying to figure out these NFL matchups and maybe a couple of other things. Like I said, betting tennis can be very profitable if you have a good opinion on that. And I'm sure there are people somewhere that are experts, although we talked about this at great length, maybe too much length yesterday on the program as we were unable to connect with Troy West. So I'm just on here babbling away about stuff. And I was. Talking about betting tennis as a proposition, and also the idea that the public handicappers, I don't know what it is. Do you find this to be true? The more pristine, the more depth there is to the knowledge and the analysis and the sabermetrics and all of the numerology they throw out there and the stats and the trends, the deeper that goes and the more well reasoned it is, ultimately you'll find that whoever the handicapper is ends up losing that game and burying the public. I don't know, and you're more of a gut instinct guy because you're an old New Yorker. There, you were hanging around with Parcells when you were on the sidelines with the Giants as their equipment manager, and naturally, I think that might be the position where you would be privileged to the most inside information of anybody. I mean, you know if the guy's playing with a broken jockstrap. So
Mm-hmm.
now, at that time, I don't know if it was like this in the NFL. But I'll never forget a young DeForest gets a chance to go into the locker room of the Washington Senators with a friend of my dad who was very well connected in Washington, D.C. So my dad had done some work for the guy, helped him out with a book that he had written. And he has, a thank you. He says, I know that your son, I was like 11 at the time or so, loves baseball. I'll take him to see a Senators game. It wasn't such a disgrace then. And we'll go in the locker room. And I'll never forget being already afflicted with the DNA, the degenerate gene. The thing that sticks out to me the most was the sign on the locker room door: gambling is strictly forbidden, and you're fucked if you make a bet on a game. And it wasn't even popular then. It was like kind of an avant-garde sort of, hey, those guys are gambling. Can you believe that? Um, but yeah, I mean, were you allowed to bet on NFL games at
Oh,
the time as a member of the Giants organization, or would that have been seen in sort of a dim light?
that sign was on our door. That same exact sign, gambling prohibited, was on the locker room entrance to both the front locker room, our equipment locker room. Yeah, it was out there. You didn't know gambling was completely taboo, wasn't talked about. I knew spreads only from friends that kind of told me at that time that were gambling. I kind of kept my nose clean after seeing that sign. I never kind of, I think I did it maybe once throughout the season where I might have given some information to a friend of mine who bet, but that was it. Where I just said, I
Was
don't
that
know if
to
we're
get the
ready to
juice
play.
turned off for a couple of weeks on a
Yeah,
log?
I mean, it was the last game of the year, and we were playing New Orleans, and I remember us not needing the game, and we practiced like it. And Parcells was getting after the guys on a Friday, and then they were Giants were a 10-point favorite. And the guy asked me before when I was outside of work, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, we're not ready to play this game," and it turned out New Orleans ended up winning outright. I'm sure there were no money lines back then, but they ended up beating us in the rain and wind and all that, and we just weren't ready. And the game, we knew we were going to watch two games, one on a Sunday and one on a Monday, that mattered for us to get in the playoffs. And both matchups ended our way, and that's how we got to Los Angeles to play the Rams in the divisional playoff, which I think jump started Parcells. Actually, got the Giants. If I have an old Giant fan listen to this, I think those two games got us into the wild card, got us a win against the Rams, and took us to play one of the elite teams ever made, this 49ers that year, that ended up beating the last time the Dolphins were in the Super Bowl, '84. And so that was
That's an ugly memory.
the gambling part of that, Jeff, was definitely prohibitive and not even talked about. No one today, you're going to hear about it in the locker room. I'm sure they have to talk to these players coming
Oh,
into
well, there have been guys betting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been a problem,
Yeah.
at least initially for the NFL, because
Yeah.
I don't think they clearly explained to the players. A friend of mine who's a sports agent says it's absolute abuse what they're doing to these guys. They don't really make it clear what the whole deal is, and then they're suspending guys for half a season for betting on a baseball game, but they did it while they were in the car in the parking lot at the practice facility, and so that constituted being in the NFL at one of their offices, and next thing you know, guys getting suspended, which seemed ridiculous because the policy wasn't really clearly stated. I think money line goes back to ancient Greece, Mike Jones. What are you talking about? You were using money line on those marathon runners back in the 1870 Olympic Games or whatever.
We know there's money line on horses, but I don't know about the ball games back then. But yeah,
I'm very upset. Speaking about horses, and I wasn't anywhere near a track or anything, and I just happened to turn on FanDuel TV, where they play the races. Used to be TVG, and I see a horse wins at Gulfstream Park, and the name of the horse was Pirate Radio. And having spent the good portion of my life and certainly my professional career in radio, I know I would have bet that horse a few bucks, at least on the just hunch. As I mean, you would have had to. There were two 6-5 favorites in there. The horse goes off at 5-1, wins for fun, 1260 in your heart. And do I have any money on him? No, because that's the lament of a degenerate gambler.
Well,
All right, let me get your overview first, because I've been zeroed in on a couple of games here, trying to figure them out. I didn't realize how badly when I first looked at this line, the Ravens had trounced the Buffalo Bills earlier in the season. And he started that game with an 87-yard run on the first play from scrimmage from Derrick Henry. He goes like right through the Buffalo Bills defense, shreds them like they had parted as if they were the Red Sea defense. And then they give up like 270 some odd yards rushing in that game to the Baltimore Ravens. And they weren't the best run defense all year long. But I was shocked actually to see. I'm not shocked, but I thought the Bills would be favored with the home field advantage that they have. They're undefeated at home. It's you can be conditioned to play in cold climates like Baltimore naturally is, but cold climates and Buffalo are a whole different animal.
right.
Because having gone to Syracuse University and schlepped over to Buffalo on many occasions there, this is a different beast. Even wind chill factors are almost like they were for that Kansas City Dolphins game last year, and that's on a mild spring day. So people are getting frostbite in April in Buffalo. I would figure that that's a distinct advantage for the Buffalo Bills. Are they not, in your opinion, as talented as the Baltimore Ravens? Is this 1-point favoritism on the road for the Ravens justified in your mind, Mike Jones? Are you tempted like I am, and there's some very convincing statistics that would make you think Buffalo is going to go down in this game. But are you tempted to go ahead and take the point in that one?
Absolutely. I think some smart people have told me that if Buffalo became an underdog, they would bet them. I liked them when I saw them at 1.5 favored in the
Yeah.
game, and now that they're a dog, I like them even more. And I'll just give you an explanation. They got three guys that are back. Matt Milano, Bernard did not play in the game. Three guys on defense that are important to their defense did not play. I like the fact that they were embarrassed. I think that gives them a slight edge going into this game, that they're looking to make up something. It might give a little bit of confidence to the Ravens. I'm sure, not as much as you would think, but there is something that says when you walk all over a team. And let's go back to my year in '84. We were absolutely trounced by the Rams in LA earlier that season. We gave up a history-making 3 safeties in the game, which I think is still a record to this day. And an old rule that came about was how we scored our first touchdown is the guy didn't touch the kickoff in the end zone, and Phil McConkey ran down and got a kick to the end zone. So we were all excited on our – the guy just let the ball roll, and McConkey fell on it, and we were up 6-0, missed the extra point. From that time off the missed extra point, everything went south. So we went in there thinking, wow, we're playing the Rams. Eric Dickerson had broke the rushing record that day. We had no chance. And yet we got in there fired up and ended up getting a win. I see a similarity to this game here. I see Buffalo having a legit shot because I'm really been keying in on Buffalo's defense. The run defense has been susceptible. I think you gear up and you go. And I think if they don't have Zay Flowers, the addition of Zay Flowers, I think there's more pressure on Lamar Jackson, thinking they're the better team going in now, especially being a favorite. I think Josh Allen has played loose most of the year. I think his success, not having that great expectation for the season, I think helped Allen. Hard for me to go against Buffalo in this spot just because of what I see and how I've seen histories of rematches and things like this. Being home, the weather's going to be, I heard, 9 degrees, a little bit colder for maybe Lamar. I know the Ravens play in that, but like you said, the Buffalo cold could be something.
And the wind can be just absolutely wicked.
Yeah, you're not talking me out of Buffalo in this game for sure.
That's my first inclination, which scares me naturally. With my track record of success and gambling. Bobby Babich is the defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and he used the insinuations that their defense sucked against the run, supposedly as a bulletin board type material, which I'm not a big believer in. The whole bulletin board thing. I mean, if you need to be inspired because some guy insulted you, and you're a professional athlete in what is now week 19 of the season, you pretty much know who you are at that point and what your deficiencies are. And if they happen to be taking dead aim at that, which Baltimore is perfectly equipped to do, then you're going to have to come up with a way to stop it. And I don't know that that's going to be completely fueled by the fact that somebody calls you a horseshit defense. But he said it worked in the game against the Denver Broncos, where they really held the Broncos running game in complete check. As outside of one scramble, they only gave up 36 yards on the ground, and all of the rushing attempts that Denver used in that ball game. And so it was a little bit of redemption there, and kind of went contrary to the numerology, where Henry had 199 yards against them in the earlier meeting, 271 on the ground in all, and they have given up a lot of big plays. They gave up. They're in the bottom third of the league in terms of big rushing plays, 62 of 10 yards or more. So many things to look at and say, the Ravens deserve the favoritism, but I'm with you, and I'm going to say give me the point on the Buffalo Bills because I think they have an excellent chance to win this game.
Just realizing this too, Jeff. Derrick Henry's a different animal. I mean, when you're going to go tee off and come in as a 200-pound safety and have to go full throttle into a guy like Derrick Henry, you think twice. You make medical decisions and life decisions on the fact that this is what I got to do. I have been impressed with Buffalo's defense, knowing that I think they feel they have a guy right now who's playing as good a football as he's done. And I think it matters. I think when you look at the other side of the ball, when you're on the sidelines and say, I got our guy, you get up there and you're willing to take that lick. And I think this is what we're going to see. I think you're going to tell early. Derrick Henry gets off early. They go up 14. It's going to be a struggle for Buffalo. I think it's going to have to be a start-to-finish game from the Bills right off the bat where they're going to come bring the leather to Henry. That's what it's going to take. And I think Buffalo's capable of it. I've been impressed the last couple of weeks with their defense. And I think these are when all this works out. I mean, I've talked about this all the time about tackling is a very difficult thing to do in this league on a consistent level. It hurts to tackle. I've talked to some safeties in this league for the last decade, and first thing I say is make sure your health is okay because this is what it comes all about. These are the games where you're going to level, and hitting in 9-degree weather is also tough to do. I think Buffalo's capable, and I can't wait for this game. This is the most intriguing game of the weekend.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. Very entertaining proposition there, and very. I mean, if you made a case, as we've both done for the Buffalo Bills, for the Baltimore Ravens winning a game, could we Have you Baker acted? I don't think so. I think there'll be a pretty even divide. The
Yeah.
bookies will have little trouble laying off the money in the Ravens game against the Buffalo Bills. All right, of the other three games, which ones? I mean, obviously there's only 4 games, so they're all of some interest. But
Yeah.
what's next up on the Mike Jones list of must see
You know,
NFL?
you gotta love what you're going to see in Kansas City. Just Houston played a few weeks ago, looked a little overmatched, lost Tank Dell. You know, I think Kansas City wins this game convincingly. I just look at it like last week. They were able to apply a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. I think Herbert played his worst game under Harbaugh, throwing 3 interceptions, matched the season total. I didn't see that coming. I thought at 6-0. I thought the bad snap play where they snapped the ball over Stroud's head and he ran around and caught the ball and threw from his 5-yard line and found an open guy. That's a complete buff play. And I thought that was a kind of a turning point. They end up getting a touchdown to go up 7-6. And then I always matter about how teams manage clocks, and you try to get points in that spot. You end up giving up another 3, you go down 10-6, and the game went sideways there for the Chargers. I think they were playing really well. They could have went up 9-0 if they had stopped that play and get a field goal before the half. Maybe get a different result. I told you that was my only loser with you last week. I love the Chargers in the game. Probably still do, even though they lost the game by 20. But it's like that. These are things happen. So I'm going to look at Kansas City that they get the week off. The offensive line got healthy. I think you won't see the pressure that they applied. I think the Chargers had some banged up guys on their line. I like Mahomes in these games, and even though you never like to lay more than 7.5, 8 with them, I just feel like they've covered 3 straight up until the last game when they laid down against Denver. I thought they had some momentum going, and I think the week off helps them. I think they get it done here pretty big.
All right. Many people are always trying to find a way to manufacture a theory where the underdog is going to prevail with the points. Find themselves in a lifetime of therapy, either through personal introspection, thinking you're a loser, or they're actually seeing somebody who's texting their mistress while you're babbling away about your life, and they really don't give a flying one. But for some reason, I'm trying to talk myself into betting the Rams over the Eagles, getting the 6 points in that game. I don't know that the Rams fall into the category. It's cliche, Mike, as you've heard a zillion times, being a sports fan and being involved in professional sports, where you are just looking at the cliche. I wouldn't want to play them right now.
Right.
I used to say that all the time about Florida State and college football, and Bobby Bowden was there even at the tail end where he's starting to show signs of senility, and Jimbo Fisher was putting arsenic in his wine glass. They usually get on a roll. They had that inexplicable, like Northern Illinois Notre Dame loss early in the season. It was usually to NC State. And then at the end of the year, when they were going to be out of contention for the national championship because of that loss, everybody be saying, oh, my God, who would want to play Florida State? Is that did the Rams fall into that category? I don't know that they do, but I haven't. Even though they won by double digits against Green Bay, I'm not overwhelmingly impressed that Philadelphia is this juggernaut this year. I mean, what last year they were already talking at the end of the season about firing Sirianni, the coach. So I mean. They played very well. Jalen Hurts was not quite as impactful as he's been in the past. He's been banged up. He came out of the concussion thing. He's not being called upon to do as much because of Saquon Barkley, your favorite player. But are the Rams a live dog in that spot, or do I need to immediately start gargling with Xanax?
Well, here's the way I look at it: is you go down through your travels over the course of a playoff week and talk to some people that gamble, who you think aren't successful, and what they're telling me is that the Rams are a live dog. So that always puts me a little on edge to that point. Why they're a live dog is Matthew Stafford. I think he's probably as good as anybody out there at these times throwing the football. Has a Super Bowl ring ahead of him. He's got 2 great targets. The tight end Higbee was back. The running back is good. Their offensive line got together. But my problem is this. I think Philly's got as good a front seven as they have in football. Their 2 middle guys, Carter and Jordan, the bigger guy. I forget the other guy from Georgia's name off my top of my head. But they're 2 big bodies that control the middle.
I couldn't save you there either. So
but anyway, those 2 guys and the edges and the backers, the safeties that come up and hit you. I think it's going to be a really tough spot for the Rams on a short week. But 6 is a nice number in these games, and we have Matthew Stafford. You have a complete, in my opinion, a really significant quarterback edge in this game. I just don't think Hurts is still not right. I didn't think he was sharp last week. Does it come back to him in a week? But again, I go to the Derrick Henry factor, which would scare me a little bit in Buffalo. The Saquon Barkley factor, I think it's a big deal. And I think these backs that have moved teams, you never know how far they can get them. I would be tough to bet the Rams in this spot, but I could see it as a live dog for sure.
All right. Chris Shula, grandson of the great Don Shula, is going to be assigned or ascribed the distinction of having to figure out how to stop Saquon Barkley as defensive coordinator. Done a great job there. McVay, we know, a very exciting young coach. Everybody was enthralled with Sean McVay, kind of tailed off there in terms of being considered the all-time ultimate coaching genius, but has come back, bounced back this year. Can they decode the Philadelphia Eagles with a passing game that hasn't been as solid as it was in previous seasons with Jalen Hurts? Maybe. Am I criminally insane to consider taking the Rams on the money line?
Well, let's go back again. If you look at my logic for the first game, let's go to this earlier matchup. Saquon Barkley goes for 255, 270-yard touchdown runs in that game. Yeah. It looks like they can't stop. They're healthier on defense. What the performance that defensive front put on Monday night against a pretty good offensive line in Minnesota was probably the reason why Sam Darnold probably lost $40 million. I mean, it's just I thought they were tremendous. 9 sacks, tying a playoff record. If they come with that kind of effort, we get a low-scoring game. I favors the underdog. If it goes under 40 points, you got to like your 6. I have a tough time pulling a trigger on a win just because of what everybody sees on a Monday night and what I hear that this is the one everybody likes as an upset. I'm going to lean a little bit toward the Commanders as that dog cover. I don't think they win, but I think the 9.5, 10 points you get might be a little bit of a look at a cover. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't have a big opinion either way on this game. I could see people taking the Rams. I'd be kind of surprised if the Rams went in there and won, but Matthew Stafford, he does things that a lot of these other guys can't do with throws. And even though he's a little older and plays from the pocket, which is a little different than what you see a lot of these quarterbacks do, he's tremendous. And, he got revitalized his career when he got traded to the Rams, and they got targets enough to cause Philly problems. I just like the way Philly's playing defensively, and I think the addition of Saquon Barkley might get him over the top here, but don't know that I'd lay 6. So again, I'm passing on this particular game.
I'm going to need a cut, man, if I'm young about this. You're going to have to bring Stitch Duran out of the locker room there and say, hey, can you work the next fight? They don't have a cut, man. It's interesting. Old habits die hard, especially for gamblers. But I'm looking at the odds board here in my New York Post, and they have the Commanders listed as the Redskins. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Rumors they're going to might go back to it. I don't know how they're going to pull it off, but
that's not happening.
Well,
maybe under Trump, he might that everybody do something disparaging towards Native Americans, and may even ship them all out of the country, saying it's time you guys left altogether. All right, I don't usually do this, but I'm going to borrow some stuff here from a guy named Evan Abrams. Who did a pretty good job in this Bet Smart column he has that is carried in the New York Post about, and it goes somewhat like this. And we'll get into some of it with you here, Mike, in the last few minutes of the program. Divisional weekend has arrived. 4 matchups left, 3 with big point spreads, and also 3 that are rematches from games this season. The unders and the home teams were 5-1 in the wild card round. And so he wants to look at this week's round in terms of betting trends that have happened in the past. All right. So the first thing he has up there is that since 2003, Mike Jones, home teams in the divisional round coming off a bye, that would be the Chiefs and the Lions, are 33-42 against the spread. So well under 500 there. You're making money. That's 44%, including 3-5 against the spread since 2020. As a favorite of 7+ points off the bye, they are 17-24-1 against the spread, 42%. So you're making money if you're going against what would appear to be the obvious, and that is the team that was sitting on the sidelines. They're all rested up. They got their guys. Everybody's busted up this point of the year. You know that from being in the NFL on that level and seeing guys that were absolutely crippled by the midpoint of the season, and they still go on and play. But apparently then laying big points, at least in the last – this decade has been a negative. If you're laying the points with the Chiefs and the Lions, the percentages in recent history, not just going all the way back to like 1936, where Sid Luckman blew a point spread, but they're in your favor. Teams to win as underdogs in the wild card round, and this applies to the Rams, the Texans, and the Commanders, are 17 and 28 straight up and 16 and 19 against the spread in the divisional round.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough to duplicate that. I mean, for the teams that pulled off the upset. Anything stand out here that you would think would be of significance in your thinking? The Bills are home underdogs to the Ravens if they close as home dogs, which still remains up in the air a little bit.
Right.
It would break an 18-game home favorite streak in the playoffs for Buffalo, dating back to the merger in 1970.
Mm-hmm.
Their only game as a home dog in the playoffs came in 1967. I don't know. Is that recent enough to even be of significance?
Yeah.
That was against the Chiefs. Len Dawson was the quarterback. Shows you how old this is. A 31-7 loss to Kansas City at plus 3.5.
Interesting.
I mean, if you're using that as your trend, I mean, you do need psychological help, do you not?
My trend is this, and I think we got to give this out to the bettors, and I think it's an important fact to go on. In the last few weeks, and this season in particular, the line moves have really haven't been well. You always got scared. I go back to last week, how I got scared off Buffalo when it went from 9.5 to 7.5 on Sunday morning.
Yes.
And I listened to people talk that some big money came in on Denver out west, and there were smart people doing it. And that's why these lines are moving. They're not moving on the basis of what the public sees and everything like that. They're moving on the basis of who these bettors are. They've had a rough year, and they've done it again this week with the Ravens going from a 1.5-point dog to a 1-point favorite. I'm very interested to see where that line ends up. If Buffalo gets one, the bigger the Buffalo would get, the bigger my bet would get. If they go to 2 as a dog, I would go even heavier. So against that trend, last week they were 1-6. The only game that won was Philadelphia, got pushed late to 5.5. Denver came down. Look at all the games and watch the totals. You know, the total in the Penn State Notre Dame game, 48-45. It goes over. I gave out that over, and I think I talked about it last week. So when these line moves, maybe the line is the right line in the beginning. Not so much does it get measured out to be the line. So that would be the point I would look to if I'm betting. And if you're out there listening, I think you got to look at watch what the line move is doing. And if you think you like the side, even don't be afraid of that move coming to your benefit. I'd say bet it even. If you're going to bet it more. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I think there's an edge. So to me, watching what's going on, both those lines moved up. So against the trend, it went from 7.5 to 8.5 in Kansas City, 8.5 to 9.5. We might see 10 on Lions, which tells you public move money all coming that way. To me, I like the Commanders in this spot, so I'm going to go 1-1. And the only reason why is I think they haven't seen a guy like Jaden Daniels. They have had problems with mobile quarterbacks. It's been documented. Josh Allen gave them a little bit of an issue. They've had some issues with with Detroit defending. Detroit is a little banged up defensively. I think they'll be able to do what they want offensively. I really like the over in this game. I never like to bet over something over 50, but 55.5 points. I would probably take both team totals going over, at least probably guarantee one. But gun to my head, I kind of like the Commanders if I can get it to 10, plus that 10 in that game, just because I think they're good enough to keep it close. I think they'll be able to exploit a little bit of Detroit's injuries on defense. I just hope they can stop them a little bit to keep it close. I just don't know that I see Detroit's offense being stopped. And a good friend of mine who's a Yards Lion fan said, if you aren't scoring over 30, you're not beating the Lions. And that's kind of what it might have to take this week. So I looked at that game over, but that would be my 1-1 split. So if I'm going to go 17 to those numbers, I'm going to say the dog that I think will cover will probably be Washington.
All right. It makes a lot of sense. Those smart money guys, those heavy hitters that you know out in Denver, are they having an embalming fluid martini right now? Make that a little dry, just blow off the vermouth here. We don't need any of that. All right, one final thing here. We want to get a quick opinion on the college game. That's going to be Monday night. And interesting matchup, a big point spread there. Also, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Most people thinking Ohio State dominates this game in terms of at least the way the betting line is set right now. 8 and a hook, a lot of points. Is Notre Dame or the Fighting Irish literally in there with a fighting chance?
You got to hope so. I think that line comes down again from 9.5 to 8.5. That move is basically created by a lot of Notre Dame popularity, nationwide. You know, I there's one edge I think that Notre Dame has in this game that I don't think a lot of people are talking about because he just doesn't project as a high pro. But of the 3 games that they've won, I think Riley Leonard is playing the best at the quarterback position. I really like what I saw in him last week coming back. I know he threw a couple bad picks, but when it comes down to it, he gets things done. He's efficient, and I think that don't out overrule the Notre Dame coaching staff. I think they've done a great job throughout this playoff run and to bounce their team back from a horrific Northern Illinois loss earlier in the year. I just think Ohio State has too much talent. I mean, it's going to be really hard for Notre Dame. We're going to see it in the trenches again. Texas, I really thought had some opportunity there, blew it late with some bad play calling and and some mishaps. But I'm not a real big Quinn Ewers fan. I think you saw it late with some of the thing holding onto the ball, doing it. Riley Leonard plays the game a little bit more efficiently. I just don't know that they have the talent to stay at this game. And this is where these games are where the talent kind of controls, what goes on. I think Ohio State's defense will win that battle. And, they would have a little bit on offense that I think could probably get them over the hump here.
Word is out that Jack Smith, the former special prosecutor on the Trump stuff, is launching an investigation into the play call by Steve Sarkisian.
Oh,
you're at the half-yard line with a 2nd and goal. It wasn't like it was 4th and goal.
Don't get me started. I mean, to slide your All-American tackle backwards 4 yards, to go try to chase down a corner and a linebacker that are All-Americans. And then they wonder why. It's like, a good friend of mine who works in the Big 12, who knows Sarkisian, said whenever you saw him stare at his play sheet, he was getting nervous. He said, watch him. He digs into that play sheet instead of managing the game, and he's trying to figure out what to do. You have 2 guys who are going to be drafted at least in the top 35 picks at tackle on Texas. Run the ball over them. I mean, just go and get 1.5 yards and you're back.
Another one. Yeah.
I mean, I just don't understand it. Plus, you threw twice to get interference calls prior to that. So you had enough plays inside that sequence. Very shocking to what he did and, just terrible.
I mean, the margin between where the ball was positioned and the goal line was thinner than an Earl Scheib paint job. I mean, what are you talking about here, kid? How do you not try at least another dive and maybe just 4 of them and say, if we can't push the ball 0.5 yard in 4 plays, then we deserve to lose this ball game. And they would have lost it by less. So if
it was 2nd down, Jeff. It didn't even play. It's not 3rd down. Maybe you tried twice and you can't get in there. Okay, You're going to play action 3rd down, maybe run a wide sweep. But Ohio State defense is so quick.
Yeah,
they're so good. You had to know that something like this is going to happen. But when you move your left tackle, All-American, top 10 pick, slide him backwards on the play. If you watch the play, he actually moves 3 yards backwards and 10 yards to his left. He can't keep up with any backer. Simon ran right by him and made the tackle.
It was ugly.
I mean, design.
A lot of money went up in smoke right there. If you were back in Texas and getting the 5 and a hook. All right. Where can people get some of your guidance in terms of making wagers? You guys are very conservative by comparison to most in terms of just putting out one play a day, the old-fashioned way.
Okay, we were 4-2 last week picking the games. We had a good year last year, 10-3, so we're 14-5 in the last 19 playoff games. The Big Gunner podcast will be giving the games out tomorrow. We posted tomorrow evening, and we're going to give out Monday's game too, all for free. Let's do our little bit of giant draft stuff, and that's where we're headed. The Big Gunner podcast on Spotify.
All right, sounds good. Mike, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for getting up with us here on Bury Your Bookie, and best of luck in all of your selections on the games coming up this week. And very exciting in both the NFL and, of course, the college game on Monday. Thanks so much for joining us, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, Mike Jones, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have the professor analyzing the college football playoff game tomorrow for you on Bury Your Bookie, so be around for that. Should be very interesting. Pretty much, I'm sure he despises both teams, so this will just be straight-up analysis without any emotional infusion whatsoever. I don't know which team he despises more. He was right there with me screaming that Rudy was offsides when he first saw the movie, and that how could the refs not throw a flag? And Ohio State, he's been kind of a fan his entire life. Ohio State has always been routinely despised here, especially by the people in Miami ever since Terry Porter ran across the field. That would have cemented it if that acrimony wasn't there already. When Terry Porter, the referee, ran across the field. I think he was even in the stands, like talking to somebody, and called a pass interference call. Not that I'm complaining. Just that some money might have been destroyed there, gone into the Bunsen burner as Ohio State got another chance. The Ohio State Buckeye fans maybe are justified in saying that they were getting fucked by the officials the entire game also, and they could point to any number of plays and give evidence of that. But nonetheless, at a crucial time like that, you hate to see a call made in that situation that is sketchy at best. And we will see you tomorrow. Thanks so much, everybody, for being with us. Always a pleasure for the people at Bet Online, at Greenlight Ventures, and, of course, NoFilter.net. I'm Jeff DeForrest. We'll catch you on the next episode of Bury Your Bookie.